Hi folks, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to get profitability by invoice in QuickBooks Online. Now for some context, in order for you to track profitability on an invoice, there needs to be costs against the sales in order to calculate profit inside the invoice. And the only way for there to be a cost inside the invoice is for you to sell an inventory part. So for the purposes of this video, profitability per invoice, it's only pertaining to the profits of an inventory part. Otherwise, if you only sell services, the invoices are, quote, 100% profitable, because there's no way to tie a service cost to an invoice. You can only tie an inventory cost to an invoice. That being said, we also have to keep in mind that you have to be working on QuickBooks Online Plus or QuickBooks Online Advanced in order to track inventory. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you two ways to track profitability by invoice. I'm going to show you one way if you have QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced, so either way, where you can view it inside the invoice by running a transaction journal report. And that's really sort of the manual way. And then if you have QuickBooks Online Advanced, which is the best edition, I'm going to show you a special report, a custom report you can run to do that. So let's go right into QuickBooks Online. And what I have on the screen just set up for this video, I have one tab here with my profit and loss for March. As you can see, no sales, no costs so far. I have another tab where I have my products and services. As you can tell, I got three parts here, part 1, 2, and 3, and they have a cost and a sales price associated with it, and they have quantity on hand. And on the third tab here, I have my inventory evaluation report that shows you that my inventory actually has or carries an average cost. So that's going to be a setup of the most common scenario where you would watch this video and see, okay, that's exactly what I need. You got to have those inventory parts. You got to have them in stock, and they have to have some sort of calculated average value for this to work. Otherwise, where's the cost going to come from? All right. So that being said, I'm going to go back here to our March P&L. There's nothing there. I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of invoices. So I'm going to go to New and go to Invoice. And by the way, this will work with a sales receipt as well. So it works with an invoice or with a sales receipt. For now, we're focused only on invoices. So I'm going to pick a customer here, AAA Construction. Notice that there's this long invoice number up here. I could change that. That's just a number that I have here. But if you want to simplify your life, I'm going to do 10001 and just use the regular invoice numbers that people are used to. I'm also going to use a custom field, which is only available in QuickBooks Online Advanced, just for the context of running the reports later on, so we can see the value of having a profitability by invoice report. So I'm going to select here Mike, and then let's say I'm going to sell a couple of products to this customer. So let's say I'm going to sell 17 of part 1, and then I'm going to sell, let's say 5 of part 2. And that's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm selling this one customer a couple of items. For the sake of just going a little bit further in this, I'm also going to pick a location. Again, assuming that you work with locations, you don't have to do that. This is just an illustration. Again, so when we do reports, it makes sense why this would be valuable. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. And that's one invoice. I'm going to save a new here. And then I'll pick, let's say, the same customer just to kind of change things up. And then a different salesperson. And then we'll pick a couple of different parts here to sell. So I'm going to sell one of each. So let's say for this one, it's just going to be one of each to simplify our life here. And this will still be the Miami office. Then I'm going to click on Save. And then I'll do Save and New. And again, I'm just creating invoices. So we start filling in QuickBooks with information. That way, when we start looking at the report, we start seeing the sales and the cost and all that stuff. So let's sell here part 01 and then part 02. And let's say 2 of this. And let's make this the New York office. And we'll make this Mike. Then we'll click on Save. And then we'll do Save and New. And then let's just do one more sale here. So we'll pick a customer here. And then we have part 03. Let's say we sold 25 of these. And then part 02. Let's say we sold 1 of it. Okay. And what's the wrong item here. Let me pick 02 part. Yep. And it was, let's say it's 2 of them. Okay, that's good. 2 of them. Let's do 2 instead. And then let's leave this as a New York office and then do Mike as a salesperson. And that's it. We have a couple of invoices thrown here. I'm going to go ahead and click on save and then X out of that so we can go back into our report. Let's run the report for March again. Okay, and then we have some sales, some costs, and then some profit. So right now at this point, I don't get a profitability by invoice. I could get profitability by customer if I wanted. So I could open up this report and do columns by customers and click on run report. Yes, I could do that. But really, sometimes we want to do it at the invoice level. And when we want to do it at the invoice level, it gets a little bit trickier because if you remember with AAA construction, I'm going to click on that so you can see it. There was 2 invoices, right? So if I want to know my profitability by invoice, maybe because I also have a salesperson to pay commission to or something like that, that's just a little bit of the context here. I do want to see that, okay? So let's start with, now that you understand what's going on, let's start with looking at the profitability, one invoice, one at a time, when you have QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced. Again, if you don't have Advanced, you can do the second thing that I'm going to show you after this one, okay? So I'm going to go into the invoice here. I'm going to open up the underlying invoice in itself. And right now, the only information we have here is that the invoice amount is $18,475. There happens to be some sales tax there, but that's fine. We'll ignore the sales tax. So we have $18,475, and we want to know how much money we're making on this invoice. So the only way to do it, again, if you only have plus, is to go into the More button down here, and then click on Transaction Journal. That's what I meant by that. We do Transaction Journal. And in the Transaction Journal, you're going to see basically all the debits and the credits assigned to this particular transaction. So this is going to calculate debits and credits to the particular transaction. Right now, at this point, there's a lot of numbers going back and forth. It's very hard to know what the profitability is. We essentially need to hide accounts receivable. We need to hide inventory asset, and we need to hide sales tax. So in order to do that, I have to export this to Excel. I'm going to click on this Export to Excel button right here. Click on Export to Excel. And then I'm going to open up the Excel file and drag that here so you can see it. So there's my Excel file. And I'll just delete all these things that are down here. And now that we have sort of a flat view of this information, we just want to filter out certain accounts. So I'm going to go into data and then click on sort. I happen to be on a Mac, actually a filter, sorry, not sort. I happen to be on a Mac, so on a PC might look a little different. And after we do a filter, I'm going to sort these by the accounts. And then I'm just simply going to delete. I don't need accounts receivable. I don't need sales tax. And I don't need inventory asset. So we really, at this point, all we really want is income accounts and cost of goods sold accounts. So down here in the bottom, I can simply just do my sum. So grab all my debits and then grab all my credits. And then I can do a quick formula. Credits minus debits from the context of an invoice would be profitability. And my profitability at this point is $4,595. So this is doing at the individual invoice level. It does take a couple steps. I hate it. I know. There's a way of doing it across all the invoices with QuickBooks doing pivot tables. So I'm going to show you that after the next one. That way I don't kind of lose you into Excel nerddom. So I'm going to close out of that. Now you know how to do it. If you have QuickBooks Online Plus or QuickBooks Online Advanced at the invoice level, that's how you would do it. So let's talk about the actual report that you can pull, like a one-click report you can pull in QuickBooks to get profitability per invoice across all your invoices. So I'm going to come here into the reports menu and click on reports. And we are going to be doing this in QuickBooks Online Advanced. You won't see this in QuickBooks Online Plus or any of the lesser versions. And then right here, you're going to see custom report builder. And we're going to start with an invoice report. It's the best way, easiest way to start. We click on invoice report and QuickBooks will build a custom report using invoices. Then I'm going to click on the drop-down menu here. and then click on custom dates and pick the date range that I want to use. So let's say we want to do March 1st through March 31st because we're only looking at March at the moment. And then we'll let this refresh. And at the moment, we're seeing the 4 invoices that we created. And if I scroll to the right, all I'm going to see is the overall amount that includes sales tax. So that's no good. I'm going to collapse this left navigation bar here so we have a little bit more real estate. And then here where it says customize report on the right hand of the screen, if you don't happen to have that, just click on customize. You're now going to choose what detailed information you want to see in this report. So right now we have turned on invoice date, due date, invoice number, and amount. So I'm going to get rid of due date for a second because let's say I don't care about that. And I'm also going to get rid of amount. That amount is the overall invoice amount. I don't need that at all. And then we also have open balance. So I'm good with having customer name, invoice number, and invoice date. Let me get rid of shipping date. I don't need that. And that's probably it. I think 3 things, it's good enough. Yeah, this is perfect. 3 things is good enough. I could try changing the order of these things. So I'm going to go to customize, scroll up, all the way up, click on layout, and then grab invoice number all the way at the beginning. And then maybe I'll grab customer name and then invoice name. That way we're starting to now configure this the way we want it. So we have invoice number, customer name, invoice date. Now we need the individual items inside of the invoice to be reporting here so we can figure out what our profit is. So I'm going to click on customize one more time. I'm going to go into columns, and then we're going to scroll down to invoice line items. Again, this works with sales receipts as well if you were to start from scratch and build it as a sales receipt. And then from here, what we are going to need is ledger amount. That's probably the single most important one. And then the second one is we're going to pick account line. So we have account line, we have ledger amount, and then we can do product and service as well. That way we know the specific products that are being sold. So we close that. And now we have account line, product and service. Everything is laid out here for us. Now, we don't want to see, as we did in the other example, we don't want to see accounts receivable, inventory asset, or the sales tax line. So there's a couple ways we can approach it. We can go to filter and then go to filter, and then we can click on account line, and then go to the operation and do not equals. Then I can click the drop down on value, and I can search each of them. So I can look for accounts receivable. I think it's the one that has AR in it. And then we can search for, what is the other one? It was inventory asset. So let's come up here to the search, inventory asset. And the other one was something with sales tax. So it's Florida, something with sales tax. Yeah, Florida Department of Revenue. Okay. So now we have the 3 accounts here, accounts receivable, sales tax, and the inventory asset. And that's one way to do it. See how cleanly it gets rid of that and it just keeps our income accounts and our cost of goods sold account. So that's one approach of doing it. I'm going to show you a slightly different approach. I'm going to go back into filter, and I'm going to get rid of this filter. And now we come back at this point. Now notice that there's empty lines where the boxes, you see empty values in the boxes where product and services are. We are going to now do a different approach. We'll go to filter. We'll filter by product and service, and then we'll do it's not empty. And then what this will do is it will only grab the information that's coming with inventory part. So that takes care of half the problem. We still have the issue where inventory asset is being reported here at the moment. So now we're going to go back into filter, go to add, and then under filter at this point, right, then we would do account line, and then where it says operation, we can do not equals, and then at this point we can do inventory asset. And that's just because it might be easier to approach it this way. Again, whichever approach you want to use, that works just fine. We're going to save this later on. Okay, good. So now up here where it says invoice report, we're going to call this profitability by invoice. Okay, so we're going to customize the report name. Then we're going to click on save. That way it's now a permanent report. If I screw things up, I could always go back and pull this up. So now I'm trying to figure out what is my profitability by invoice. We got the filters going. Notice that single time something is sold, something is posting into income as a negative amount. That's how debits and credits work. Credits are negative and credits are sales. And then debits are positives and debits are costs. That's how it works. So think of sort of the opposite of what mechanically in your head debits and credits mean, or negative and positives mean. So now what we want to do is we want to group them. So we're going to click on group, click on the drop-down menu, and then do group by invoice number. Wow, awesome stuff. I know, I get excited for very simple things. So now that we have that, now we're grouped by invoice number here. And what I probably want to do is bring that ledger amount a little bit to the left. So I'm going to go to customize, go to layout, and then just bring, let's do ledger amount all the way to the left. So it's a little bit easier to read. And then we're going to scroll all the way to the right. And then now what I can do, and I can manipulate these columns a little bit. Now I can expand them. See, as I expand them here, I get to, now visually, I get to see the ledger amounts or the invoice level. What I don't have here now is the subtotal. So back into group here, I'm going to click on edit group calculations. I can click on select column, select ledger amount, and then calculate, and that would be a total. So what that would do is now that would allow me to see that profitability while these numbers are collapsed. So at this point, we got exactly what we wanted. We have our invoices. Our invoices have multiple lines in it, right? The sale and the cost side for each of the items. That's why it says 4, because it's 2 items with a sale and a cost side next to it. And then the profitability for each invoice. That's it. That's what we wanted. It's exactly what we wanted. So I could save this report one more time if I wanted to. So I have all the things that we did to customize it. I probably want to learn how to export, so I can export this to Excel and we can see what this looks like when we export to Excel, which looks like this. In Excel, the grouping doesn't follow. So the Excel is just going to be a flat file. So if you wanted to sort of do the same thing in Excel, you would select all the information and then go into data and then go into insert and then click on pivot table. And again, we're nerding out around Excel pivot tables. That's not what this is meant to do, but just to show you an example. So we're going to bring invoice number over to rows and then ledger amount here into values. And that will give me essentially the same thing. Let me zoom this in so it's a little bit easier for you to read. So that will give me essentially the same set of information that I was getting here. Again, negatives means profit. I know that's a weird one, but that's my profitability per invoice. So in Excel, it's a pretty simple concept. Now, earlier when we created the invoices, we added some locations and we added some custom fields for salesperson. This is really where the beauty comes in. We can go into customize, go back into columns here, and then we can go to the invoice, the general invoice grouping here, go to show all columns, and now I can bring in, for example, location. It should be here somewhere. Where's my salesperson? There we go, salesperson, custom field, and then location should be here somewhere. Oh, there it is. If you have a tough time finding it, you can also type location in the search box and spell it correctly, and then figure out which of these is going to have, which of these fields you want to bring in naturally at one location on their invoice. So now that I brought those in, which are going to be here on the right-hand side, I can now group even further. So I'm going to go to customize, and I want to go to layout, and then let's say I want to start with location, then go to salesperson, then go to invoice number, then go to ledger amount. So that's a possibility. Then I'm going to scroll to the right here, and then the grouping, I can do it in subgroupings. So I can kill this grouping, and then I can start by grouping by location. Then I can go 2, group by salesperson. Then I can do 3, subgroup by invoice number, and then edit group calculations. We're going to do ledger amount, and then calculate by total. Again, what we did earlier. So now it's essentially the same report, but now I have all my Miami office sales and my profitability across the board, all the invoices for my Miami sales. And then I can see that in Miami, Mike had $4,500 in profitability and Steven had $650 $13 in profitability. I can open New York office and I can see that Mike had $5,500 in profitability, and I can open them up and then see the profitability of the specific invoices, even at that level. And I can even flip it even further. I can go to group and I can kill this invoice number, this salesperson, this location, and now bring in here salesperson. I don't even have to change the order, just the grouping. And the second one would be, let's say, the invoice number. And then let's say the third one is going to be location. And then on edit group calculations, I'm still going to pick ledger amount. It's only going to let you pick from numerical values and do a total and add that. So now we have my total profits across the board for Mike. And actually, let me bring in, I'm going to go to layout and bring ledger amount next to the salesperson just to make it easier to read. So I have Mike with $10,000 worth of profits, Steve with $600 worth of profits, and I can open it up and see which invoice number happened to be the one that they got the profit for. And we can take it one step further, open up the invoice, and then see exactly what location it came from. So you can play with this custom reports however you see fit. I think that the custom reporting tool inside QuickBooks Online Advanced is the most advanced reporting tool in a cloud accounting software. This makes the $200 price tag for QuickBooks Online Advanced worth every penny. And this is just one example of the application of this custom reporting tool. Now I'm going to go back and fulfill on the campaign promise that I'm going to show you how to, if you have QuickBooks Online Plus, how to do this without the custom reporting tool and to get this information across multiple invoices. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to reports, and then we're going to go search for a transaction detail report. Okay, so we're going to do a transaction detail report, and we can do in this case, let's say we can do by customer. That's transaction detail by account. That's the one we're going to pick. So transaction detail by account, and then we'll do the same filtering here. So we're looking at the exact same information. So 03/31/2022, run that report, and then we have basically all the information in here. Now, what's really neat is when we do this in reports mode, this actually becomes a lot easier. Where it says group by, I'm going to go none, because I actually don't need to group it by anything. Would be nice if I can group by invoice number. That would be incredible. You can't, which is why we have to do it this way. So no need to group by. Then we're going to go to customize. Then we're going to go into filter. And this is what we tell it specifically what we want. So transaction type, we're going to pick here invoice, and sales receipts would also go. It also counts. So if you happen to have a mixture of invoices and sales receipts, or all sales receipts, this makes sense for this. If you want to include your refunds, you would include your refund receipts and also your credit memos, assuming that that's in your account. These are the ones that you would include in the filter. Then under the distribution account, this is when I click on the drop-down menu and click on where it says all income and expense accounts. That gets rid of accounts receivable. It gets rid of inventory asset. So I click on that and then click on run report. So now what we see here is essentially a flat file that contains date, invoice number, customer name, in this case, location, part number, or not the part number, but the memo and the description of the part number, the split, which we don't need, amount, and balance. So we can start getting rid of things that we don't need. In this case, I'm going to click on the show more, and we definitely don't need balance. We're not going to need balance. I think product and service is valuable, so we're going to bring that in, and we don't need transaction type. But actually, we can leave transaction type. That's not going to hurt us. And then we click out of that. Oh, and we said we didn't want split. That's right. So I'm going to click on the gear menu and then get rid of split. Where are you? Useless split. There we go. Click on that split. Just get rid of it and then click out of it. And there we go. So now we have date, transaction type, invoice number, customer name, location, class, which we don't have anything on there, memo description, amount, product, and service. So now what we can do is now we can take this report. First of all, I would save it, and I would call it invoice profitability detail. So I'm saving this as a report that I can go back and pull later. Click on save. And now I'm going to export this into Excel. Okay. And this works in Google Sheets too. If you have QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can export to Google Sheets. So I'm going to close out my old Excel file and bring in my new Excel that I just exported, which is this file that contains all the information. I'm going to go into View and zoom this in so it's easier to read for the video. And now we have all the data. So just to simplify my life, I'm going to grab the first 4 columns, delete that. I'm going to take that was the first 4 rows, sorry. Then the first column, delete that. And usually I delete the last 4 rows as well. That way we have totally flat information. Then I select all this information. Here, I'm going to go into Insert Pivot Table. Depending on the version of Excel, it could be under Data Pivot Table. I'm going to go to Pivot Table and click OK. And then this is where we can do essentially the same thing. Let me have this in 200% zoom. Same thing we were seeing before on the previous example. We can go here to Location. Then we can go to, let's say, Invoice Number. Then we can go to Customer Name. And then we can go to Amount. In this case, we bring Amount here over to Values. Okay. And also, we wanted profitability. So let me just go back here and check for a second. All these amounts are containing sales and costs. So unfortunately, there's no context here for sales and costs. So there's actually a mistake in this process. And I'm kind of glad we did it because I don't have the cost component in here. This is my error, 100%, right? So I'm going to close out of that. And we're not going to scratch everything. There's just one little thing I missed. And again, I'm not going to edit this. I'll keep this piece in. So I'm going to go to the gear menu. And what I need to do is, instead of having amount, I need to have debit and credit. So that was my mistake, that I was going with just raw amount. The regular reporting system doesn't have this ledger amount that does the positive and negatives, which is what causes this confusion. So I'm going to do debit and credit, X out of that, so we can allow the system to report the sales on one side and the cost on the other side. That's what we had essentially missed. So that was just the only thing that was missed. So I'm going to go to Save Customization, save that report over. Okay, so no harm done. Go back and export this to Excel again. Open up the Excel file. I'm going to bring it here over from my other screen. Go to View and do 200%. We'll maximize this here. As we mentioned earlier, first 4 rows, delete those bad boys. First column, delete that. And the last 4, delete that. There we go. So I'm going to add another column here called Profit. And then what I'll do is I'm going to convert these debits and credits into negatives and positives, because I don't have a way of doing that in QuickBooks from scratch. So I'm going to do equals, and I'll flip the positives and negatives now, so it's just easier. So I'm going to do the credits as a positive number, and then the debits as a negative number. In this specific case, I'm flipping them. And then I'll keep that formula, and then I scroll this down. That way there's negatives and positives across the board. So we have essentially the cost and the sales price. Here, the sales price is positive, cost is negative. Again, we're flipping the formula compared to the custom reports where we couldn't do that. Okay, so now that we have that, I now select the entire data set, go to Insert, Pivot Table, go to Pivot Table, click OK, and then go into View. Let's do 200%. And now we can group these however we want to. So we can start with location first, and then we can move it to customer name, and then we can move it to grab invoice number, then find profit, and then bring that down into value. So essentially, we're going to have location, name, and number on the rows, and profit on their values. That's going to give me my profitability across the board. So now I can see, okay, my profitability for the Miami office versus New York office, very, very clearly stated here. I can expand New York office, and then I can see my profitability for each customer or each invoice. If I don't want to see customer, I just click and drag customer back out there, and now I can see it only at the invoice level. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.